Hello, my name is Richard Benjamins. I'm the Chief AI and Data Strategist at Telefonica and will tell you something about how organizations can work on the responsible use of artificial intelligence. First, let me give you a brief overview of the talk. First, I will explain the context and motivation of this work. Then I will come to specific challenges that organizations have when they want to work with AI in a responsible way, and finally, some brief conclusions. Artificial intelligence creates an enormous business opportunity across many different sectors. PwC estimates almost 16 trillion annually in value that can be created. The reason that this is possible is because of the unlimited amount of computation power and the growth in data that is available today. There are different drivers for value creation like productivity, personalization, of quality of the work, but this is a huge opportunity. Also in the telco industry, there is a huge amount of uptake of artificial intelligence. Firstly, for internal usage, optimizing the core business. It's about customer understanding. It's about intelligent marketing, about optimization of the network deployment process. But there are also important innovations when facing the customers, using chatbots, virtual assistants. Customer relation can improve 24/7, 365 in a much better way. But data as itself can also be a business. It can create new business units to help other sectors, not only to improve the telco sector, but help other sectors such as retail, public administration, transportation, logistics, etc. And finally, artificial intelligence is not only a business opportunity, but there's also an opportunity to improve societies, to use artificial intelligence and big data to advance the sustainable development goals. Telefonica has been very active and still very active in working on those challenges and really contributing value to social purposes, including fighting against COVID-19. Apart from the huge opportunities that artificial intelligence provides, we have seen that there are also ethical and societal risks associated to this technology. Look, for instance, here at the left side, you see a camera taking a picture, and all faces have a rectangle around the face, except one face. And accidentally, it happens that this face is not a white face, but a black face. So obviously, this camera is kind of discriminating. This is not an intended phenomenon. It's obviously unintended. The company didn't want to make this happen, but it made an error when training the algorithm by only considering, let's say, faces of white people. Also in automatic translation, there are problems. If you can see here at the right-hand side, if you translate "she is a doctor" to a language that has no gender, and then you translate it back into English, you get "he is a doctor." It's not that this Google wants to discriminate here against women, but it's just that when training this data, obviously there are much more coincidences of doctor and he, and rather than doctor with she. So there are all kinds of phenomenons that lead to potential negative applications and impacts of artificial intelligence. The Cambridge Analytica with privacy. Amazon was using a tool to help him hiring people, and it hired mostly men, also because the training data was mostly biased against men. So as a response to those challenges, there is an effort, a movement going on to come up with what they call AI principles or ethics guidelines that help organizations avoid those pitfalls. This is the European Commission's effort, where they identify 7 key requirements for ethical AI, including human agency, transparency, robustness, privacy, diversity, etc. Yeah. Here you can see Telefonica's AI principles, which basically said AI should be fair, it should not discriminate, yeah? It should be transparent and explainable when that is needed. It should be based, it should be human-centric, people in the center. It should be, of course, with privacy and security, and not only working ourselves, but also if we work with partners and third parties, they should comply with similar or those principles. Yeah? In the past few years, what we've seen is a kind of proliferation of AI principles according to many organizations. Yeah. There is a study of Harvard analyzing 36 companies, organizations in the world. What kind of principles were they using? Have they used? And there is a kind of commonality between 8 or 9 of them. Yeah? There is also other studies that gather all kinds of principles, and so this is really a trend of the last 2 years. Now, let's move now to the specific challenges that organizations have when implementing and selecting those principles. There are many principles for AI that you can, as an organization, select. Yeah, these are related to all the negative consequences that this technology has, like what happens to the future of work, lethal autonomous weapon systems, fairness and discrimination, privacy, security, human agency, yeah, you name it. Yeah. So the first thing you can do as an organization is to focus on those principles or challenges that are within your scope, yeah? So that you as an organization can control. If you act on it, things will change. So it's about privacy, it's about security, safety, explainability. You can make decisions to make that happen, if you know. And then on the other hand, there are governmental decisions. Yeah? How is the relation between people and robots? What about the future of works? What about AI in defense? Those are things as an organization you cannot decide, but governments can. So that's the first division. The second division is about unintended and intended consequences of the use of artificial intelligence. Of course, what is intended, you do on purpose, and therefore you can control it. Yeah? What is unintended happens as a consequence, as a side effect of things you want to do, but hey, sometimes things have an impact that was not foreseen, and that's what you should focus on with your principles, because that's where you need to reduce the risks. And finally, there is another decision related to the principles. You can focus on very AI specific principles like transparency, explainability, human agency, and fairness and non-discrimination, or you can have a more global view of all the aspects that are involved in artificial intelligence, and that includes privacy, security, safety, robustness, etc. However, those are not specific for AI. They apply to all kinds of digital systems. Once we've looked at the approach of how to select principles, let's have a look at how to implement those principles into an organization. That's where really the challenge is. We advocate a methodological approach, which we have coined responsible AI by design, yeah? Inspired by privacy and security by design. This methodology consists of 5 main ingredients: the AI principles, a lot of awareness and training to employees, a questionnaire with recommendations, some tools that help answer some of the questions, and of course, a governance model. Let's look into some of the details of those things. First, we have designed and implemented an online course for employees, depending on the profile they have. And this is a course about artificial intelligence and ethics, where they understand what AI is, what the ethical impacts can be, and how they can mitigate the negative consequences of those applications. All of that enriched with practical applications. Here you can have a look at a typical question of the questionnaire. This is about fair AI. It's the FAIR principle. In general, in the questionnaire, every principle of AI has a certain questions. Depending on the answer you give, there are recommendations, and if the answer is in such a way that it needs further work, then the product manager will be notified that there is still some work to be done. Of course, you need also a governance model. Yeah? If things are working well, then everything is going smoothly. But if there are questions that cannot be answered from the questionnaire, maybe you need to escalate. Yeah. So important doubts about whether something should be done with artificial intelligence or not, and how it should be done. If the team cannot find it out, this can be escalated to a group of experts. And if the experts cannot deal with it either, it's escalated to what we call the Responsible Business Office. This is an existing committee that looks at responsibility aspects of our business. We also think it's important to introduce a new role in the organization. We call it the Responsible AI Champion, that has a multitude of tasks and responsibilities. It has to inform about the organization, about what it means to be responsible with AI. It has to work on training of employees, has to be a point of advice and also escalation. It should coordinate with different areas such as privacy, regulation, security, sustainability. It should connect people and experts, and also it should make it happen. It should do change management such that responsible use of AI becomes business as usual rather than a one-off thing. As a conclusion, so we worked on two things. First, what can organizations do to select the AI principles that fit their case? First of all, organizations should select those principles they can act on and leave other principles to governmental organization institutions. Secondly, they should select principles fit for their sector. Some sectors are more exposed to the negative consequences of AI, like the insurance industry or financial industry, than other sectors like the movie industry, and this is important, or industrial applications. And secondly, decide whether you want to cover every aspect of an AI system, of only those that are very specific for AI. Yeah? So those are the criteria that you can use to select your best AI principles. Secondly, it's about how to implement those AI principles in an organization. Then follow a methodological approach like the ones we had, Responsible AI by Design. Spend a lot of effort on awareness and training of employees, because this is all new, even for the technical people. And think about adding a new role to an organization called Responsible AI Champion, which has a central role in turning something new into a process that is a regular business process, business as usual. Thank you very much for your attention.